will be considered in our NRA's future candidate evaluations. So obviously this is not a hollow threat. That people were waiting to see what they would come out and how they would react, of whether or not this would be put into the formulation, the calculation of how the NRA grades. We see that Manchin and Toomey both have A's by the NRA. How do you think this is going to perpetuate how our elected members of the Senate move forward?
Well, the American people and even NRA members don't align with the leadership of the NRA in regard to this issue. The American people, by over 90%, want background checks. NRA members, by 85, I believe it is, percent, want background checks. And I don't think that you're going to create a scorecard or a grade that's going to convince the American people criminals and the dangerously mentally ill should have guns. And if you don't want them to have guns, you've got to have background checks. That's the first line of defense. And that we know for a fact that has stopped both dangerously mentally ill people as well as criminals from buying guns. And we need to continue those efforts in order to make sure our communities are safer places and that law-abiding citizens can continue to have their guns for their hunting, shooting, and self-protection purposes.
Congressman Mike Thompson, head of the House Task Force on Gun Control. Sir, thanks for making time for me. I want to go ahead
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I want to bring in our Thursday morning political power panel. We have MSNBC contributor Victoria De Francesco Soto, MSNBC's newest host and a columnist for The Hill, Karen Finney, and Republican strategist Chip Saltzman. Okay, gang, a lot of moving parts this morning, especially in this hour, but we're going to pick up where we left off right there with the congressman. And I do want to read just part of a Newtown family statement that came out. So if you'll bear with me for a second, they have said that no one should have to experience the pain that we have endured. Common sense gun laws will help spare others from the grief we live with every day, and we thank Senators Manchin and Toomey for coming together to honor the memory of the victims of Sandy Hook, and we urge their colleagues in Congress to join them. As I was pointing out, this is just kind of the first benchmark to see if this can move forward, this hour's vote, determining whether the debate on the bill can then begin in earnest. One thing, though, Karen, I want to start by playing what we had yesterday from the moms demanding action in this new ad that they have out to get everyone's attention. Take a look.
Bloody children ran out of the school as shots were being fired.
Shocked and saddened by the news of the shootings at Virginia Tech today.
What does it take for us to change what we are seeing unfold before our eyes?
They had their entire lives ahead of them.
My child is gone.
I mean, it's a really powerful ad. Karen, one thing I wanted to point out, though, that we got from our new Wall Street Journal poll about guns and firearm sales, it's from February, it was at 61%, people thinking that it needs to be more strict. Now it's only at 55%. The further that we get away from something like Newtown, is that going to take the pressure off of our elected leaders in Washington, D.C. to act and do something concrete?
Well, I think that's what the NRA and, frankly, some of those who are going to try to slow walk this process are absolutely hoping for. And I think that's, one of the many reasons that the Newtown families, my God, deserve so much credit and so much admiration for their courage. I mean, these are people who are still grieving, and yet they are sharing their pain so publicly to be a part of keeping the pressure on. And so I think one of the things that's a little bit different this time than in previous times that I hope will mean that we don't lose the momentum is that you do have more of a counterweight to the NRA. You do have, groups like the Moms. You do have Gabby Gifford's organization and the Newtown Moms. And you've got veterans coming out and saying, hey, the weapons that I carry in Afghanistan should not be on our streets. So I think that is helping to continue to put the pressure on. And it just means people have got to recognize, like you just said, this is step one of even just trying to have the conversation. They got to hunker in for another several weeks.
Yeah, it's the baby steps that we're watching here. So we're in the mud right now, but I want to show everybody, because BuzzFeed posted this clip from a 2011 video featuring an American-born al-Qaeda spokesman pointing out just how easy it is to get guns here in the U.S. Take a look.
America is absolutely awash with easily obtainable firearms. You can go down to a gun show at the local convention center and come away with a fully automatic assault rifle without a background check and most likely without having to show an identification card. So what are you waiting for?
One thing that I want to clarify about that is that you cannot get a fully automatic weapon, but you can get a semi-automatic weapon here. So a minor clarification there. But Chip, when Al-Qaeda is praising how easy it is to get a gun in the U.S., that's going to get a lot of people's attention. It gets people's hackles up, considering how we operate as a country. And just to point out for everybody, the war-torn Arab country of Yemen is only second in gun ownership to the U.S., and that is they're a poorest Arab nation, and they follow us. I mean, it's eye-raising when you think about it.
Well, you know, when Al-Qaeda says anything like that, it certainly does get everybody's attention. Look, I've been to those gun shows. I've bought guns at those gun shows, and sometimes I do a background check depending on where I'm in. Sometimes I don't. You show your ID, you get a gun. You know, the thing about background checks is pretty simple. Background checks is not going to change what happened in Newtown, and it was a tragedy. And when I watch the families and the children and the friends go on TV, my heart bleeds for them. And if there was anything we could do to change that, obviously we want to do that. Background checks would not have changed that. When we talk about going through background checks for the mentally ill, I think a lot of people support that. They don't want crazy people to have guns. Crazy people do get guns, but they don't go and do it by buying at a gun show or buying at a gun shop and getting a background check. They just don't do that. Criminals don't do background checks. That's why they're criminals.
You know,
and
Thomas,
I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, I've heard that argument from the opponents of these new gun safety measures time and again. The point is not whether or not background. I mean, the point is we need a multi-pronged approach to this problem. And whether or not background checks would have stopped Newtown, it may have already stopped and may continue to prevent other crimes from happening. And the point is that's why we're talking about the assault weapons ban, which is being pushed to the back burner. That's why we're talking about limiting, you know, the capacity of the magazines. I mean, the point is we need a multi-pronged approach. But where we are now is we are whittled down to the barest minimum of what we think we can get done. That's why this is important.
And the intellectual debate needs to be had, at least for the families of Newtown, so that they
Sure.
can see that their loved ones did not die in vain. And there is room for reform in this country. There certainly is room for reform. I need to shift topics, though, and as we talk about reform, the other big thing, Victoria, that we are expecting some movement on potentially any time now is what the Immigration 8 Unity Group has tried to come together with to talk about immigration reform in the country. Our new poll shows that the views on immigration for Americans, they think that immigration strengthens the U.S. by some 54%. So that is in a high category. The other part of this that's really telling is the pathway to citizenship, where all adults that were polled favor this at 64%. And then when we look at that and we just limit it to Latino voters, 82% of Latino voters want to see a pathway to citizenship. We're going to have an opportunity to speak with Senator Jeff Flake here later in the hour. He is a part of the Immigration 8. But what are your hopes that we get to see, you know, some movement, some progress forward, especially from this bipartisan group of 8?
I do see a lot of momentum here, and I see it in terms of the broad-based coalition. So, like with gun control, we see over half of Americans supporting immigration. But when we break that down, for example, with gun control, over 80% of Democrats want more gun control, whereas only 27% of Republicans do. But when we shift to immigration, we see that 70% of Republicans are in support of immigration reform with legalization when folks pay back taxes and pay fines and do civics classes. So what we're seeing is that public opinion broad-based coalition, but also in terms of the stronger interest groups. So we're seeing evangelicals, Chamber of Commerce Republicans coming together with immigrant rights groups and with labor unions to push this forward. Again, in contrast to guns, you have the NRA having that stalwart counterweight. So you don't have that broad-based coalition, which immigration is going to move forward, hopefully up to the legislative level.
All right, optimism. I like to leave the panel with that. Our power panel for today, Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, Karen Finney, Chip Saltzman. My thanks to all three of you. I want to pass this on along because we're keeping our eyes on some breaking news that's coming to us just outside of Dallas, Texas. Take a look at this. There's been this major accident on State Highway 161, also known as the President George Bush Turnpike. We're hearing that a bus was involved in this crash. As many as 40 people could be trapped inside that bus. We're going to keep a close watch on that situation. You can see people that are being taken off in stretchers right now, but we'll update you on that turnpike accident there outside of Dallas in a moment.
It's just so frustrating. It's the middle of this special moment, and I need to run off to the bathroom. I'm fed up with always having to put my bladder's needs ahead of my daughter.
It's perfect.
So today, I'm finally talking to my doctor about overactive bladder symptoms.
Know that gotta go feeling? Ask your doctor about prescription Tovia.